The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to just open up the lines a little bit here, a little early, just so I can find out who's joining us. So I'm going to unmute you. There's a few people here. We have two Karens. So let's start with Karen Holmes. Are you there?
Hi there. Yes, hello.
Hi, Karen. And Karen, are you a mom?
I am.
Okay, great. Can you hear me okay?
I can, yes.
Okay, let me know how that works.
Yeah, you
Karen,
sound great.
Good. There's another Karen here. Karen Caston? Is that how you say it? Okay, Karen, I don't know if you can hear me. How about Leah? Leah, are you there? And Nancy?
Yes,
Nancy, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes. Can you hear me okay?
I can. It's awesome.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, the wonders of technology, isn't it amazing? So we don't start for about 7 minutes here. And so I just wanted to take this opportunity to get a little bit of information on who's coming. I do have a couple questions I'm going to ask the group, but maybe you can tell me a little bit about why you're attending this webinar. What do you expect? Anybody want to start that? Anybody have a reason? You have nothing better to do tonight?
Well, I have just, I've been home with my oldest daughter for 5 years, and for the past 2.5, well, just over 2 years, I guess, I've worked at CAPA headquarters part-time, and it's been fabulous, and I'm attending tonight to just get some ideas if I would decide to continue pursuing a career or if I want to stay with my part-time status right now. And I have a 4-month-old on my lap, so you might hear her in the background. I might mute myself here in just a minute.
Yeah, during the actual presentation, I'm going to mute everybody just so it's clear.
That's fine.
Karen, I'll mute you now there so that we don't have the baby. You know, I've done many, many presentations and spoken with a lot of groups where we've had to juggle our children at the same time. And I think that society is opening up more and more to that. So certainly with this group tonight, I have no problem if you have to run in and out to deal with other things. In fact, I was telling Karen that my practice session last night, I had my husband trying to get the kids to football and water polo, and they couldn't find the swimsuit. So you'll hear in my, if you heard the recording of my practice, it says, I'm speaking, and then I say, I don't know where it is, because I couldn't find the bathing suit they were looking for. Crazy, crazy. But that's part of what going back to work and being a mom at the same time is about. Does anybody have any questions before we start up here? Let's see what time we have. We still have about 5 minutes. So, Nancy, do you have anything to share?
You know, my daughter is a Kappa Kappa Gamma, and she sent this to me. So I'm an older mom.
Okay.
I left the workforce, went back for a year. I'm trying to get back in again, and at the same time being an older mother. You know, the over-the-hill scenario, trying to get a business launched as well. So this is kind of something that is very important to me for the returning moms as well as the older people, and I'm probably the oldest one on the, you know.
Well, I'm always surprised, pleasantly surprised, at the number of women that have chosen to go back to work for different reasons at different stages, and we find, my theory is I would much rather hire somebody who has the maturity and experience than somebody who's green. I think that there's a work ethic that we tend to have as we're older that is helpful. I'm going to start muting everybody here. If you have any questions, please use your chat ability. Is that, I believe, how it works? So you can ask questions. I have no problems with stopping and starting. This is not something that has to be in a certain order, and I would much rather answer your questions and concerns and help you out. Looks like we have a couple other people joining now. Good evening, those who just joined. We're going to give this another few minutes as people are slowly but surely joining us in the next 3 or 4 minutes. Let's see. I see some names that I recognize. That's great. And as I said, my name is Jill Ader, and we are going to be starting here in about 3 minutes. As a mom, I know that you very often schedule things second by second, so if something's starting at a certain time, it can't start before then. And I intend to finish in about 30 minutes and then have questions after that. So if you want to interrupt at any time, please feel free to use the chat. So let's hang on here for another 2 minutes, and then we will begin. If anybody has any questions right now, feel free to raise your hand, and I will unmute you. I'm going to ask a couple questions here. Let's start with a poll. Let's start getting some answers on this. I'd like to know who I'm speaking with. If you can answer this first of 3 polls, it'll give me a little more information about what you would like to hear and who is in our audience today. Thank you for attending. We have about 1 more minute before we're officially starting. So far, we have 100% our moms that are attending. Okay, it is time to start. Thank you for attending this evening. My name is Jill Ader. I am founder and COO of 10 Till 2, which is a placement service specializing in part-time work. I'm based in Denver, Colorado, but I was a Kappa at UC San Diego in San Diego, California, La Jolla, California, a long time ago, but I've been quite active in alumni, and I think that programs that Kappa offers is great. So welcome those of you who are and who may not be Kappas. Tonight we're going to talk about going back to work, a little bit about returning to the workforce, and what I have found in being in a business that specializes in those who are returning to the workforce, what questions I can answer and give you some insight into what I think can help you out. Understand this is my opinion. I welcome your questions and comments and others' experiences. We'll open the phone lines later on, so let's get get going here. Anybody else? We only have, not everybody has voted here on the answer to the poll. But I'm seeing here that for most people, we are moms. Okay, let's ask another question here. My next question, how long have you been out of the workforce, if you are indeed out of the workforce? I asked this to find out a little bit about who I'm talking to so I can give you some information that is relevant to your needs. Myself, I was out of the workforce for 6 years before starting 10 till 2. Okay. So we're looking pretty evenly between all 3 to 5 years, 5 to 10, and 10 years or more. If anybody's more recent, there's your chance to let me know you're there. Okay, one more quick question. Are you actively seeking employment right now? Not at all, or you're here tonight because you're thinking about it? Not quite sure whether to do it or not. Once more, pretty evenly spread out. A little heavy on the people who are actively looking for work. So that's good to know, so I can help you out on that. Okay. Let's close that poll. And let's go to tips and tricks for returning to the workforce. I'd say a pretty important one here is make sure you have your things together, because if you're running out with your lunchbox, that might show a little differently. Okay, so what we're going to be talking about tonight, a few things. First off, what are your reasons and why do you think you should go back to work? What are some of the options? How to talk to your family, your kids, your spouse, because it's important that everybody is on board. We're going to speak a little bit about resumes, and I know that there has been another webinar on resumes, and you'll probably have the opportunity to attend numerous groups that have resume workshops. This is my insight into it. One of the concerns that I hear people voice is, I haven't done anything. I've been out of the workforce 2 to 5 years. I haven't done anything. So we'll talk about that. And then I'm going to show you some examples of resumes, of some very bad ones, just to show you what not to do, and one extremely good one and why it works. We'll talk about the interview process and how interviewing, some tips that give you some ideas on how to feel comfortable, how to make a good impression. That makes a big difference. And then we'll talk a little bit about the ever intense, can you do it all? Can you be a mom? Can you do it all? Can you really do it all? We'll see when we get there. Let's first do another quiz. I know we did a couple questions so I knew who you were, but let's find out right now. What percentage of women are employed in the workforce? Is it 40, 60, or 80%? I'm going to go through the questions first, and then we'll go over the answers. How about mothers? What percentage of mothers work? Is it 71, 31, or 11%? And as we know, there is a salary discrepancy. What is that salary discrepancy right now? Is it 10%, 25, or 20%? And I'm going to talk a lot about Wonder Woman. And so the first question about to find out your Wonder Woman knowledge, what is the purpose of her bracelets? Is it finding the truth, deflecting bullets, or purely a fabulous fashion statement? Well, there she is. So let's look at what she's got with her bracelet. The percentage of women who are employed right now, 60% are employed in the workforce. Did you get that right? What percentage of mothers work? This is actually a trick question because we all know 100% of mothers work and work very hard. So, but into the official workforce, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 71% work. That salary discrepancy is hanging at about 20% these days. It really hasn't changed much in the last few years, so that's something as women we need to push. And Wonder Woman bullets with her bracelet, although it is a pretty good fashion statement too. Let's give you some statistics, some of the numbers that are out there. Since 1998, when my oldest son was born, till now, there's been a 10% increase in working women. But since I was born, and now I'm dating myself, there's been a 78% increase, very strong. What's interesting in this next statistic is that the proportion of women with a college degree has tripled. And that goes along with the fact that more and more women are attending college. More women with kids under 18 are working. It was a high in 2000. Now it's hanging at about 71%. And not surprisingly, mothers with older children are more likely to work than those with young children. And I will talk a little more about that as we move on. So why do you want to go back to work? It isn't for everyone. Let's look at the pros and cons here. Initially, it's about you. This is something that you're choosing to do, and it's the time when you are not a mother, you're out, you have other responsibilities to other people, but it's about you. Some people choose to work for the adult interaction and to keep the skills sharp. In fact, I had one woman who worked for me who said, it's so nice to have my neurons firing again. If you're the one that everybody calls to ask favors of, to volunteer on every committee in every organization, I'm sorry, I have a project at work is a great excuse. And you get out of the house. Some people feel a little stuck when they have nowhere they have to go every day. Maybe some extra cash. And maybe marriage, and I'll tell you why I say maybe. The good part is it could give you something else to talk about at the dinner table, but you'll see it's also on the con side. And I found that my kids respect me in a way that they didn't necessarily before. They respected me as a mom, and they continue to do so, but they were very impressed with the fact that mom does this. Here's the other things you want to consider. Is the money even worth it? There's a lot of expenses involved in going back to work. Gas, clothing, dry cleaning, child care. Are you going to make enough to make it worth it? Child care being the first issue there. If your kids are young, are you going to have to pay for daycare? What are you going to do with the kids? And then there's, even if they're old enough to stay on their own, is somebody helping them with homework? Is that something you've been doing? Once I started working again, it took a while for us to decide how we were going to clean the house, because that had been something that was on my, and all of a sudden I didn't want to do it anymore. And is there a commute to their job? Do you live far enough you're going to spend an hour each day on the road, or is traffic bad in your city? I have about a 20-minute commute. It's really not a problem, but you might want to consider that. If you love to volunteer, you might not be able to as much as you had done before, so that could be a pro or a con. I guarantee you whatever you choose will, if you go back to work, whatever job you have, will increase stress. Not necessarily a bad thing. There's good stress, but it will increase. And then this is the flip side of the helping your marriage. It would be hard on your marriage, depends. But there are no wrong choices. There is nothing, I don't get involved in the mom, and we are very strong at my business. I think Kappa is very strong about this, that there is such thing as a wrong choice. It's what works for you at that time of your life. Talking about it with your family is the most important thing. Before you decide to go back, make sure your spouse is in agreement. If you come one day and say, honey, I got a job, and they didn't know what you were talking about, that could cause all sorts of problems. Idea, wait a minute here, hold on, what are we talking about? Who's going to do this? Who's going to take care of the kids? How are we, where are we? So talk to your spouse, make sure that they're in agreement. If they're not, figure out how best to convince them. Now, you also have to convince your kids, and you have to consider not just the age of your kids, but the situation. And I say this because one of my business partners has a special needs kid. So he's 9, and a 9-year-old can do certain things and have certain abilities and responsibilities, but a special needs kid might not. So you want to consider your situation with your kids. This little girl is an example of why I think waiting until the kids are old is not necessarily the answer. A little girl like this can go to an after-school program. I know our elementary school has it, where I can pay, right after school I pay for a service where he does homework and does sports and can play. It's supervised, it's right at the school, it's very easy. But if you wait till the kids are older and in high school, that little girl turned into this young woman. This is a friend's daughter. Responsible, great kid, excellent grades. Actually, she's now in college. But when this picture, she was 17. And I don't know about you, but I think that that would be really nice to be sure you're home at the clock so this one's not home alone. So consider the situation. When you talk to your kids and your spouse, explain to them your skills, your experience, what you've done in the past, and that you went to college and where you went to college, what you've studied, because sometimes the children don't know that. You assume that they know what you've done, but they may not. So explain. It's time to explain what you've done in your past. Their biggest concern, spouse and children, is if you work, you're going to be leaving them and you won't be around. So you confirm to them that you will still be there and you'll still be mom. It's very important that they understand everybody's going to have to help out and take on more responsibility. I call this the troops need to work together as a team, and that's extremely important. This is something I tried. It won't work for every family, but if the kids aren't so sure about it, the deal. Say, let's try it. You can offer an incentive. For our family, the incentive was, if mom works and can make some money, we'll be able to go to Disneyland. So you have to see what works for your family. Maybe this isn't the best, but it's a suggestion. So next subject is obviously resumes. As he says here, that's a mighty impressive resume. Mind if I borrow it for a few minutes? Well, I've never seen a borrowed resume that I know of, but I have seen quite a few. And as a staffing company, seen all levels of them. And the biggest question I get from going back to work is, I haven't done anything, they say. What do I put on my resume? Well, I want you to, you have done. You have previous experience in a career. And if you've been out for 5 years, even 10 years, you have skills that you've learned. So don't take those lightly. Before is still important. But in the meantime, you've done volunteer work and leadership roles. And you could be a room mom. You could be working on a fundraiser. You could be leading a group at church or synagogue. There's a lot of things that you might find that you've done that are work. Your technical skills are obviously strong. Look at what you're doing now. You may have been out of the workforce, but you're on a webinar. You're up with technology and know what's going on. If you're on Facebook, if you're spreadsheets, you're still doing a lot. And now you have a whole new network of people in and out of business that you can use to expand your skills and abilities and your connections to finding jobs. So don't downplay what you've done. The resumes are different now. Resumes, there's a lot of books you can find in resume services. 10till2 has a resume service. You can find them all over the internet. Pardon me. You can also find them in the community. I know Denver Works has a service where they will help you with your resume. And what I'm finding is that the rules of have changed. Things are quite different when they used to be. And the main thing is you have 9 to 45 seconds to get somebody's attention. That's all they're going to spend on your resume. So all the time you're working on it, 9 seconds may be all you get. What's happening is if somebody puts an ad, say on Craigslist, they're getting hundreds and hundreds of resumes because of the unemployment rate. So very quickly, they're taking those resumes and throwing them into 2 piles. The look at pile and the trash pile. So you have a very short time to get their attention. So I recommend it be 1 page and avoid those full sentences where they have to really spend some effort figuring out what you did. Instead, bullet points. Get them the information quickly. You want to have different versions for different jobs, different skills you may have, different positions you may be interested in. You don't want to use the same resume for every single application. Now, most resume templates have this section called objective. And personally, I don't find that useful at all because it sounds very canned, and I'll show you some in the examples. But it usually says something along the lines of, to work in an environment where I can utilize my skills to the best of my ability while contributing to the betterment of the company. It doesn't mean anything. Instead, I recommend a summary of your skills or a skills overview or something like that, and I will show you. If you use an objective that's too narrow, if you end up saying something like, I want to be a tax accountant or work in a large firm, and what if an opportunity comes up in a small firm? Would you not? So it could limit you. Verbs, verbs, verbs is the most important thing. What did you do and how did you do it? Want some strong action. And you want to quantify your successes with numbers, dollar signs, percentages. Increased the bottom line by 30%, decreased turnover. There's plenty you can show, and I will show some examples. Absolutely every resume should include technical skills. If you know CPR, if you have a license in aerobics, if you've done coursework in IT classes, anything that would show your skills. And I will show examples of that as well. If you went to college, you don't need to list your high school. Absolutely not. I'm assuming you did, that you went to high school, and I really don't need to know that you graduated in 1981. Now, the only exception is if you went to a prep school and you're talking to another alumni. That's where you would use a different version. And not emphasize this enough. Do not include mom or mother, housemate, homemaker, or domestic engineer, anything like that on a job, on a resume. You had time off, as you all have, being a parent. You don't need to justify that time. If somebody says, well, what were you doing for the last 3 years? You have your volunteer work to show. You can very easily say, raising my children or taking care of my family. You don't need to justify that. You certainly don't need it on your resume. And personal information. It's very nice that you have a pointer, but it doesn't belong on your resume. How many kids you have doesn't belong on your resume. I have one that even listed what kind of cars he drives in the years. It doesn't belong on your resume. And my final point on resumes here is get help. If you need it, if you're stuck, ask somebody for help. Find a service, either like we offer or else. Go to your county offices. A bad resume is worse than no resume. So I mentioned, what if you have this break of time where you've been out of the workforce? How do you put volunteer work on your resume? And I think it's extremely important because it does show a lot about who you are. And what I would recommend is instead of just saying involved in, very often you'll volunteer work and it'll say Red Cross, Denver Blood Bank, the Animal Shelter, and First Baptist Church. Instead of just saying you were involved in those things, why don't you take it as a job description? Imagine if they paid you for what you were doing. If you were paid, how would you write that job description and list it actually under professional history or with work history as opposed to lessening its impact and just putting it under volunteer? The way you do the rest of the resume, show the effects, show the positives, show the accomplishments that you've done in that organization. Try and stay neutral. You don't want to go too heavy on religion or politics. So that may be part of your group that you were involved in. You have to name the First Baptist Church if that's where you were, but you want to make it as professional as you can in the job description, so it, even though they're the employer, it's not, it doesn't risk turning somebody off because they're not involved in that group. Supervisors and volunteer groups are wonderful references. We often hear that people say, I don't see references because I haven't been working. Well, if you're volunteering at the school, the principal of the school is a reference. If you're working at the synagogue, the rabbi you've been working with may be a great reference. Think about things like that. You're at the blood bank, the director that you worked under, those are supervisors, just like you had a job. Okay, this is the fun part. This is what not to do on a resume. And these are all real resumes. The names have been changed to protect the innocent. These are all people who sent 10 till 2 resumes, and they're pretty funny. Okay, I talked about that objective. Well, this person didn't have one. They used Split, and they have some schooling, and they have some experience, but really didn't do anything about it. As I said, this is a real resume I've received. Okay, here's the template. Actually a decent resume, but look at the top. They forgot to fill in the information in the template. Crazy. This gal, first off, I don't think that the center layout is very easy to read. All she did was list her jobs. It doesn't say anything about what activities she did. She actually has some decent jobs, but not a whole lot of information. There's that horrible personal information, married, 3 children, not legal to ask about, shouldn't volunteer the information at all. And then if you see where she lives, at the very bottom, this little teeny font. What I find interesting about this one is this gal has a degree in marketing and obviously doesn't market herself very well. This is another resume that I got. I love this one because the objective is that nice generic to enter into a job that suits my skills and interests and perform to the best of my ability in a company with the utmost respect and dignity. Well, she went to high school for 1 year, and King Soopers is a grocery store out here, and she worked there, but we don't know what her skills are. We don't know if she was president or cashier or what. And I swear these were real resumes I've gotten. This one, actually a very nice resume, good bullet points, strong information, but look at the objectives. To obtain a manicurist position. Well, that's great if that's her goal, but why is she sending it to me when I'm doing jobs that are very different? Too much information. Personal information does not belong because after you read the first line, I don't think you are going any further in this resume. 8 months pregnant. Wow. Okay, this is the best one. And excuse the layout on here because I had to crop it a little to get it clear. But this person is to contribute to the overall success of the organization without chemical exposure. Only got my attention. So I looked through it and could see that the person did x-rays and mammography, and men had all this relevant experience. Well, the relevant experience has really no rhyme or reason. It just kind of goes on. In fact, it goes to a second page, and it's included but not limited to all these things, which in a bookkeeper to a motel maid. But the worst thing about this resume is she lists her disabilities, and this is where that chemical issues came in. She is sensitized to chemicals. She has asthma. She has a 10-pound weight limit, arthritis, high blood pressure, chemical depression, is bipolar, and has chronic sinus problems. I'm not really wanting to meet her, to include her in my list of candidates, because that absolutely does not belong on a resume. Can I discriminate? No, but you know what? I don't even need to if somebody's going to give me all that information. So, I've shown you the bad. What's the good look like? Here's a few points on this resume. Notice there's no address listed. It doesn't matter where you live. What matters is contact information, and in this time of email and phone, all you need. Because it's illegal for somebody to discriminate based on where you live, so why even give them that information? It also takes up space on a resume, which you have plenty of things you need to put in there. Here's that summary I talked about. Right off the bat, excellent work ethic, attention to detail, and history of professional and personal success. And the bullet points right away give you the information of what she does. Her highlight in her career, a couple things. First off, the company is second, the job title is first. And sometimes I see people put those in the reverse order. I don't care where you worked. I want to know what you did. But if you notice in, for example, the third bullet point under Community Relations Coordinator, responsible for analyzing and critiquing business plans resulting in 30% savings budget. That shows those successes. Increased involvement by 15%. You keep going, doubled sales yearly. That's huge. Now, one of the things, very interesting, this is a male versus female issue. Men are very good at patting themselves on the back. When you look at a man's resume, they very often will say, this is what I accomplished. If you look at women in general, we tend to say, well, this is what I did. And it ends up being a job description. Let's look at the second page. She assisted the attorneys being up to a $10 million payment, participated in work groups, responded to in efficiency, even community involvement, has successes, raised $35,000, paired in grant writing. It's very direct on what she accomplished. And this is also a real resume. Education listed, technology skills. One thing I want you to notice in technology is that internet savvy is important. Social media marketing is important because people are wanting to make sure you know that. So what is your biggest strength? When you get to that interview, how are you going to talk about what is your biggest strength? Because I wait list too. I don't look like that. But in the interview, number one, we all know this, but I'm going to remind you again, do your homework. Know your research. Be prepared on who is the company, what do they do, were there any recent contracts. Look at Google News. See if they've been in the news lately. Was somebody just promoted to president? Did they announce quarterly earnings? Know what you're getting into, and so you have shown that you're prepared with the company. But you can also prepare by knowing who the interviewer is. Look on LinkedIn, look on Google, find out who Bob Smith is at a company, and show that you've done that research. That's huge, very impressive. I can't even say anything about this. It's assumed, but I have to remind you, and we tell people all the time, have everything ready. Have your resume copies, have your references, have anything in a folder to go before you walk in. Contingent support planning. You're going to be at school during that interview. Make sure that the school knows that if Susie gets sick, be able to call somebody else on the list. that the school nurse is going to be able to call somebody else. You do not want to be bothered in the middle of an interview with saying, I'm sorry, that was my kid's school, I have to go. You've just lost that job. So make sure anything and everything is covered, and then turn your cell phone. I can't push this enough. You want to get there early. You want to be easy an hour. You want to make sure you have plenty of time to park, know where the building is, catch your breath. There's nothing worse than running. I'm so sorry, I couldn't find parking, or I couldn't find the building. And then equally important is dressing the part. We're going to talk about dressing the part. I am not suggesting that you wear boots. Absolutely not. But every job has a costume. If you're working downtown in an accountant's office, there is a certain expectation of what you're going to wear. You do not show up in jeans or sweats. In fact, you are not even going to show up in open-toed sandals. You want to know what the costume is. What Mrs. Incredible does, she doesn't dress like a long job. She knows the appropriate costume for a superhero. And I love this because she looks fabulous and has great hips. But you need to know what the costume is. If you're at a local bakery, it may be a little different. Always overdressed. They say it's casual, wear jeans, wear slacks. If it's, you can always, it's like showing up to a party. It's better to come overdressed than underdressed. The other thing is know the weather. Don't plan on wearing something that's inappropriate for the season or the weather that day. If here in Denver we have goofy weather, it was pouring rain and cold yesterday. Today it was closer to 75. Know what you're going to wear so you're not sweating or uncomfortable or freezing. And be aware of your age. Wear something that is age appropriate. Don't go to the junior section if it's not right. And don't go to your closet and find something that's old and dates you. It should be appropriate for today and for the age you are, to show your responsibility, because that comes off in that presentation. So the interview. So you get to the interview. What do? You want to show that you're smart. Being smart, you can get through anything else. First thing you want to do is show that you're smart, and show that you're committed. That ties in the fact of you're not answering your phone, you're not running around, you've done your homework. That all shows that you're committed and ready to do the job. That goes along with also being prepared. A smile goes so far, so far. Make sure you want to be there. You're warm, you're welcome, that you feel welcome there, that you're somebody they want to have on the team. I still see women and experience that how to shake hands, how to know that. And you don't want to be looking around the room. Make contact. Let them know you are focused and there. Here's some don'ts for an interview. Don't make excuses. Well, I would have gotten there in this job, but the company went under and my husband got transferred. Don't make excuses on what you can accomplish. Focus on the things you did. Do not talk about your other commitments of, well, Thursdays I volunteer at the school, and my son has football practice on Mondays and Wednesdays, so I need to get him there at that time. Don't let them know about those other commitments. And that's to not talking about your husband and kids. That is not legal to ask for them to ask you about. It's not relevant. This is about you. In fact, you don't even want to talk too much. You want to tell them what you do, what you're capable of doing, why you want to be, show them you're smart, and then let them talk. Which is a weird thing on a webinar here because I'm not getting the feedback from you the way I do this live. I include bullying as something very real in the interview process. You are in an interview and somebody makes you uncomfortable. Clearly illegal questions, being too physically close, too flirty or inappropriate. you have every right to say, thank you for your time, and walk out the door. There is nothing that says you have to stay in an interview that you don't want the job, that you are not comfortable. So if somebody's pushing you in any area, just excuse yourself and say, I don't think this is going to work, and walk out. Don't be afraid. People stay in situations because they think they have to. You don't have to. Don't be bullied. Now, talking about going back and forth between your kid's head and your mom head and your work head, this guy's expression is exactly what you don't want. The excuse of, oh, I'm sorry, I was still in my mommy mode, let me switch. Keep one on, put it on, leave it on while you're there. So I said we were going to talk about Wonder Woman. So let's see if this will have my audio work. Oh, I have the Wonder Woman theme. So I'm going to talk about being Wonder Woman. I love this comic because this happens to me all the time, even though this is for little kids. Enjoy your alone time and relax. I don't think that happens very often. And if anybody wants any of these comics, please let me know. I'd be happy to send you them. So how do you be Wonder Woman? You've got to have a plan every day. If you're going to be back at work, you've got to know every day you're going to do. As Yogi Berra said, you've got to know where you're going or you'll wind up somewhere else. This is a family thing. You have to have the troops on board. So what I recommend is a family calendar that you post. If your kids are little, post it on the mirror of your husband's bathroom, on his mirror where he's shaving in the morning. Says, here's this week. I need you to get the kids to this school program. I will do that program. Thursday night we have a dinner with the church. Today we're going out with the Smiths. Put a family calendar together. If the kids are old enough, put it on the refrigerator. Let them know that you have soccer on Thursday. I need you to be ready and have packed Wednesday night. My opinion, fortunately my husband is good about this, but make sure your husband owns up to fatherhood, meaning I don't like the line when somebody says, oh, my husband's babysitting the kids tonight. That doesn't fly in my world. It's his kids. Make him own up to it. It's part of the deal. Your kids need to have appropriate responsibilities, age-appropriate responsibilities, and even the youngest ones can help. Very important. And to be Wonder Woman, to take time for yourself. You need to get out there and exercise. You need time with girlfriends. And you need sleep. You also need time, and give yourself time to worry or build it into your time, knowing that sometimes you'll have to do that. The other thing I feel very strongly, and I'm fortunate to have been married for 17 years, is make time for your relationship. And we feel guilty if we've been at work all day that the kids need our time. And they do, but your spouse also does. You need to say, tonight, you have every other night this week, but tonight, Dad and I are going out. That all helps you be Wonder Woman. Health is incredibly important. When you have a busier schedule, you need to take care of yourself, watch what you eat, watch your drink, make sure you have enough water, you sleep enough, and I can't push enough on the exercise. Ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And that means things like become the queen of carpool. I'll arrange it. If you can drive on the kids to practice, I'd be happy to pick them up. Plan it. Don't just wait for somebody else to ask for help first. And we all know the theory of it takes a village. It really does. I'll watch the kids today if you can do this, if you can take them on Thursday. Use the other moms in your network. And really important, just say no. I'm sorry, I'm busy. This is really hard for a lot of women, myself included. I get suckered into saying, sure, I'll check out a fundraiser for the water polo team, among the other things I'm doing. So, be Wonder Woman? Absolutely. Here's what you need to do. Believe in yourself. And how do you believe in yourself? Stand up, ladies. Pat yourself on the back. We don't do that enough. Update your image. And that means look at yourself. Put some focus and energy on what you need. If you need to, get a haircut. Go shopping. I'm a big believer in the secondhand stores. You don't have to spend a lot, but get something that makes you feel good. Then look at your resume, update it, and stand on your soapbox a little while you're doing that and figure out what you've accomplished. And then, you know what, girlfriends? You pat yourself on the back again. So here's my summary. Feel good about your choices. What your choices are is what's right for you at any given time. It's not necessarily something you have to stick with forever, and it's somebody's job to judge you on what is right for you. Absolutely, you're not going to get anywhere if you don't have the right resume, so put the effort into that. In your interview, do your homework, be prepared. Call in the troops. That's the family, that's the friends, the village, and ask for help. Because, honey, you are Wonder Woman. Absolutely can do it all. So this is a little bit about me. Here's my email and our blog. I have thanks to a lot of people who do this. And I am going to unmute. Let's see if I can do this here. I'm going to unmute. And if anybody has any questions, please feel free to discuss. We have 7 people on right now. So everybody is unmuted. Anybody have questions? Has anybody found work?
Hello?
Right? Yes. Go ahead. Anybody want to bring something up here? Anybody have a funny interview today on something that was uncomfortable or odd? Anybody have any questions?
Jill, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Nancy again. I just want to thank you for your time and your expertise in presenting this.
Well, you're more than welcome. You have our email there, and feel free to ask questions and contact me if you need to. CAPA has a lot of resources, and you should take advantage of those. But don't be afraid. Nancy, you or anybody else out of the workforce for a while shouldn't slow you down, because that's just out of the pay force. Anybody else have a question? Okay. Well, thank you all for your time. I appreciate you attending. This is recorded, so if anybody would like to access it in the archives, I think, Karen, is that correct? You can read archives?
It will be a week or so, probably. We can send an email to all those on the list and let you know when it's archived and on the website.
Great, great. If any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. I will be online at my email tonight. Thank you again for attending, especially those on the East Coast where it's quite late. I appreciate your attention and your time. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Bye.